Hello there! Recently my son called me up and said, "Hey Dad, my friend is selling a Rustler. Comes with a couple of bodies and a bunch of wheels. You want to buy it?" I said, "Well, I have enough projects as it is, but swing by and I take a look at it." When I first saw it, I thought it was a 4x4 since it had the Badlands on there. And it looked like this. When I lifted the body though, I immediately got a bit nostalgic. And wow, a two-wheel drive stadium truck. And for some reason I started to wonder how come I never owned one of these Rustlers before. I have so many memories of these types of trucks, and once in a while I think back, and I guess the older I get, even more nostalgic, especially during this long and dark winter season we have here. I also happen to be a bit of a collector and hoarder when it comes to a lot of stuff, especially RCs, and I guess I've been really lucky to have been able to save some stuff, even though moving halfway around the world a couple of times. I'm originally from Sweden and I now live in Sweden, and so does my son and daughter. But in the beginning of 1990 I moved with my parents and my brothers and sisters to Southern California. I've been into RCs for as long as I can remember, and my younger brothers also joined that hobby as they were growing up. Moving to Southern California really escalated that hobby due mostly to the weather, I guess. At first we ran these entry-level Kyosho cars on the streets. And this is all I have left from that era. It's actually my first Kyosho car. It's the Maxim front wheel drive. And this is all that's left of it, and probably some parts somewhere on one of the other trucks, but I'm lucky to have this one. Soon we grew tired of racing those Kyosho cars and stuff in the streets, so we wanted to go racing. We wanted to go racing at a track. We visited the Ranch Pit Shops track in Pomona. And this is not my own picture, but one I found on Google, kind of corresponding to the way the track and stand looked like when we raced there. Pretty soon though we found out that those cars we had weren't really good on that type of track. Instead we got impressed by the buggies, but especially the stadium trucks. The Ranch Pit Shop of course had a store, and we also found out that it was actually owned by Losi. Why we didn't shop there at the time, I don't really remember. Instead, we went down to a hobby store. We found earlier that we knew had a large selection of everything RCs, Tony's Hobbies. I believe Tony's Hobbies was in La Puente back then, and it seems that they now have moved to Baldwin Park. I can't really remember if they've been there all the time or if I don't remember it correctly. But they didn't have a track back then when we shopped there, but they seem to have one now. So we won the trucks, and it ended up with me buying a Traxxas Eagle. And this is the TRXT model 1902. While my brother, he bought an RC10T, Team Associated RC10T truck. And my youngest brother, who was only 10 at the time, bought the Losi Junior T, which I guess was a budget version of the JRXT, but pretty good model for a 10-year-old. Anyway, it was pretty costly deals with radios, ESCs and chargers and batteries and paint for the bodies and all that, so well, we kind of totally ran out of money, but all excited we went home and built all these together. So we started racing the trucks at the track. A lot to learn for sure. We simply had never driven on a track before, but we quickly learned, and pretty soon also found another track that was indoors in a large warehouse. Can't really remember why we switched tracks or looked for another one. Maybe it was because of opening hours, or simply being nicer to be indoors, or in protection of the sun, and less dusty track as well, I guess. I believe this track was located in Covina. Simply a large warehouse. Someone rented and built a track in it and opened a small hobby shop right next to it. The buggies and trucks took 30 minutes turns, and while your batteries usually, or my batteries at least, didn't, or our batteries didn't last that long, there was a lot of time spent at the bench wrenching. Anyway, it was ran by a pretty large guy, and he had a large dog. And whenever he walked out and said, "Hey, we close in 5 minutes and then I'm gonna let the dog loose," he really meant that. And after one time seeing what could happen to your car if you didn't pick it up, you did respond well to that first warning. What happened was that the dog chased your car on the track and then ate it. Seriously. If anyone remembers what this place was called, please comment below. So a couple of months later, both my brothers didn't have time or didn't want to go to the track anymore and found other hobbies instead. That sort of left me with 3 trucks, and I brought them all for a while. And since I never really got the hang of that Traxxas Eagle, and with Team Associated and Losi being the local brands at the track, there weren't really anyone to ask for setup advice for that Eagle. And this is what that Eagle looks like today. It used to look like this, and but now this is all that's left of it. I remember kind of soon after I tried to race at a track and stuff. I was a bit jealous of my brother's RC10T, and I bought a chassis and everything to my Eagle and kind of refitted that, and I fitted RPMs up front, and these are still actually the original shocks though, but I think these are Kyosho ones, and it has the Eagle transmission on there. But other than that, the Eagle, I guess it was a nice kit in a way, but it actually came with a narrow graphite chassis, and it also came with the graphite shock towers. So while that was nice, I think the layout of the RC10 was a lot nicer. So it would be nice to, I guess, restore this or something into an Eagle again. It would be really nice to place an Eagle on the shelf, but this one is missing a lot of parts and stuff. So I guess I'm just lucky for the parts I have left from it. There's bits and pieces for it still, and these are the front ones, but I'm missing the rear ones, and well, it's just the way it is. So the RC10T quickly became my favorite, and pretty soon that was the only one I brought to the track, and the one I kept spending my money on. And this is the actual RC10T from back then, and my pride and joy, so to speak. And it was perfectly tuned and set up for the track, and I had a lot of fun with this one. While the RC10T kit was pretty well thought out of the box, parts still broke, and whenever they did that, you were looking for more reliable parts, and you went for upgrades. And on this one, I fitted the RPM arms up front and on the rear, and also the Lunsford titanium turnbuckles, and also the Lunsford titanium hinge pins. And on the rear I have the MIP CVDs. Other than that, pretty much stock. Wheels, we went through a lot of wheels, and especially tires, and I remember the RC10T kit came with this sort of split wheels with the plastic insert. We did find those kind of bulky, so pretty soon we found this HPI. I believe they're called Star rims. They were available in a lot of colors, Yellow ones and pink ones, and of course the chrome ones, and but even they even had gold ones. And other than that, it's like I said, it's pretty much stock. It has the original shocks and towers, and of course also the infamous stealth transmission. To top off the electronics, motors, you can buy a variety of motors back then. Team Associated had their own brand, Reedy, and I believe this is one. I believe we bought a few of those outlaw ones, and there were a bunch of ones available, but pretty costly. So anyway, we rebuilt them and we broke them in, and we bought brushes and stuff, and there was a lot of tinkering with those motors. As for the rest of the electronics, you can kind of choose between Tekin and Novak. I tended to like Novak a bit better. Don't know why, but this is the Novak 410-M5, and this is the Novak 75 megahertz receiver. And to top that off, the Futaba Magnum Junior, a really nice radio, although I believe it, even if this was an expensive model back then, it was still considered a hobby level. I remember seeing especially the buggy guys with more expensive transmitters and stuff, and it also has the Futaba servo, of course. This was a really nice radio, and still is in some way, and it uses the 75 megahertz band, which had a lot of channels available. We only owned a few of them because they were kind of costly buying the crystals for the receiver and transmitter. But it was a really nice system where a bunch of guys could race at the same time at the track. A really nice radio. So I continued to race at the track, mostly the indoor one, but once in a while at the ranch pit shop as well. All at a hobby level and practice, and just for fun really. Although I did enter the local club races on occasion, not really at the ranch pit shop one, but at the Covina indoor one. There were a bunch of them on especially on weekends, so that was a great fun. This is so many years ago, but still some of those memories are really strong. It's like visiting that ranch pit shop track late evening. No one had watered the track for a whole day, and you came up on that berm in a wide left turn and just kind of slid out of the curb. Beautiful, really. I just love those hard-packed dirt tracks. A few years went by, and I spent a lot of time at the tracks, and of course on the RC workbench in the garage as well. By fall of '93, my wife told me she was pregnant, so that kind of changed it a whole lot. All in all, it was a real costly hobby with batteries and parts and track fees, gas going to the track back and forth, and I guess I couldn't really afford it, even though I wasn't hobby level. Suddenly I was going to have a kid, so life took other priorities, and the hobby mostly ended up on the shelf. When my daughter was born in '95, the family basically took up all the time and money I had, so I did kind of work all over the place, and whenever I saw a track somewhere, I had to at least check it out and be the audience, so to speak. It seemed like the whole hobby level stadium truck scene in the mid-90s shifted towards nitro, and more outdoor tracks emerged. It seemed like a bunch of people wanted to run nitro instead, perhaps because of longer run times. I was really impressed by these nitro trucks anyhow, and all of a sudden I wanted the RC10 GT. Well, that never happened, or at least hasn't happened yet. So, back to the question, how come I never owned a Rustler or even bought one of these? Well, I know they've been around for a really long time, and I guess they haven't changed much except for being available with brushless. For some reason I have never paid attention to it though, and even if checking out one today in a local hobby shop, chances are the 4x4 is on display. The first Rustler were actually released in '94, and by then my hobby was already on the shelf. So that kind of answers the question why I never really got one. But now seeing this Losi Junior T right next to it. It's this was released in 91, and just by looking at the layout and the chassis, I guess Losi was a few years ahead when it came to using a plastic composite chassis, at least ahead of Traxxas. And while this one is really nice to still own, it's kind of a bit like the Eagle one. It's been robbed for parts, and parts have been given away. But I'm a bit lucky to still have what's left of it anyway. I'm missing these are the original stock rear rims, but I'm missing the front ones, and it's missing a bunch of parts. But I don't even know if the shocks are still original. It has the black RPM arms up front, which came a lot later actually from what I remember. The RPM arms were usually available in white only, and you had to dye them your own color. And so probably the same thing with this one. I don't know if I'm going to restore it. And recently I've been checking out actually a newer Losi, because I would like to buy a more recent version. It would be nice with a Team Associated RC10 in a new version as well, but since Horizon now owns Losi, and Horizon has a warehouse in Germany, the Losi is a bit more obtainable for me. And so we'll see what happens there, but I believe they're actually called 22T today. So anyway, this Junior T has a really nice sort of memory attached to it. It's actually this spur gear. And one night at the Covina track, for some reason, a pretty tall guy came in, and I kind of immediately thought I was actually, wow, Gil Losi Jr., what's he doing here? So anyway, he put his car down on the track. I can't remember if it was a buggy or a truck, and he ran for a couple of laps, and he put it on the bench, and he removed this spur gear, and he threw it in the trash. And there were like trash cans by your workbench and stuff, and he fitted another one, and he went go racing again. Well, it was not that common back then that people actually threw away parts. So I got a bit curious, so I reached into the trash can and I picked it up. Team Losi, orange one, 90 tooth. There's nothing wrong with it. So I guess he just didn't like it, or he was trying out some parts and stuff. But that's a really dear memory for me, and I'm really lucky to still have this piece. So my son was born in '94, and somehow I rushed him into the hobby, and I actually restored, built, and modded a Kyosho for him when he was just a year old. And that might have been a bit too early, but this is the actual one, and it's a Kyosho Optima. And it was really fun building this for him, although he got a little bit scared when I showed him how to run it and stuff, and no wonder really. But this is how the JMS kind of came to. It's simply my son's initials, and I guess this was the first body that I put those stickers on. So just a few years later, he actually started to run this in the backyard along with the stadium trucks, and we created good memories right there in the backyard, and so a lot of fun. And I also tried to introduce my daughter into the hobby, but I guess it wasn't really her thing, or she never got to it, and she never really asked me for any RC cars throughout the years. So trying to relive these memories and moments from 30 years ago, I checked out some YouTube vids. Some really cool curiosa that I actually learned pretty recently was that the whole stadium truck thing, from Losi's side at least, was that they were based or derived from the Marui Big Bear. and that was actually my first real electric RC truck. And believe it or not, I actually got that one too. And I bought this brand new as a kit in 1984, and I guess the whole style of it and everything, I don't know even if the term monster truck was invented back then, but I guess the Losis, they imported these and they modded them and stuff and brought them onto the track, and that's kind of resulted in the stadium trucks. So that's a really cool story, or a cool fact, I guess. So I've been thinking many times to restore these trucks, but I don't really want to destroy the memories from the Big Bear and RC10 or any of them really, especially not Jake's first one. And the memories and everything are kind of etched in these, the way they sit right now. So I'm just going to leave them be, or I have decided to let them be. And while the addition of the Rustler, it's a pretty nice thing. I mean, now I have one more two-wheel drive stadium truck, even if it's a much current one. I guess that's pretty nice in a way, because I can just run it being brushless and all. And if I haven't really checked out if there's any upgrades or anything on it like that. It looks pretty much stock. But if I know the tracks is right, I mean, there's probably plenty of options and upgrades that I can buy for it. So I'm really glad to add this to my collection, so to speak. And I might buy a more current, like I spoke about earlier, a more current Team Losi stadium truck as well. And hopefully I can relive some of those memories in some way if I find that perfect track and stuff. So really nice. Just as an end word here, I guess, the local hobby level racing scene and classes back then probably looked very different on different markets and parts of the world, but for me these are very special memories, and it felt like Southern California was a good place to be at the time. Apart from the nice weather, a bunch of companies were right there. Losi, Team Associated, RPM, Novak, Tekken, Proline, MIP, and more. They were all right there and considered local companies. We never had any short supply of parts and cars and upgrades through the local hobby shops, and for me it feels really great to have been part of that time and the beginning of the stadium truck era, so to say, with all those great companies. And even after 30 years, I actually still use products from some of those companies. Of course, a lot of things has changed since then, but it's pretty cool that most of those brands are still around. One thing I've been really lucky with, and that I'm really happy about regarding RCs, is that me and my son have been able to share this hobby on and off for the last 25 years and keep doing so, creating new memories. Thanks for watching.